Hi, I'm Michael Hartman.
I'm Naomi Liu.
And I'm Mike Rizzo. And this is OpsCast,
a podcast for marketing ops pros
and RevOps pros.
Created by the Mo Pros, the #1 community for marketing operations professionals.
Tune in to each episode as we chat with real professionals to help elevate you in your marketing operations career.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of OpsCast, brought to you by marketingops.com, powered by the Mo Pros. Joined today, I'm your host, Michael Hartman, joined today by my co-host, Mike Rizzo.
Howdy, howdy.
Hopefully it's not raining like it is for me here in Dallas. We went from hot and humid yesterday to rainy and cooler today. I'll take that.
Well, at least it's not rainy.
Fickle weather gods.
Yeah. So joining us today to talk about a couple of things. One, like a path forward for marketing ops folks into revenue ops, but also a course that she's going to be doing is Dionne Mejer. She is a 25 plus year sales veteran and executive. She, as she would like to say, leverages her superpower of a recovering perfectionist. I can appreciate that. I'm married to one. Right. And a people pleaser, also married to one. And teach leaders and sales professionals how to have sales with soul. She's helped organizations create and deploy sales-ready programs that shape teams to be agile, fast, flexible, fluid, and successful, all things we want. And she's the author of The Stepped Approach and a highly sought-after speaker. And so we are going to jump right into it. So Dionne, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Nice to see you guys again.
Yeah. So the course that you're going to be doing is called Lead the Shift, Mastering the Bridge to Revenue Operations Leadership, right?
Yes, it's going to be amazing.
Awesome.
I'm super excited. So for those listening, Dionne and I go pretty far back now. We actually met like quite a few years ago over at MavenLink when I had my time at MavenLink. And suffice it to say, we didn't get to interact enough. Opposite sides of the business, so to speak, although aligned on revenue. I think there was a lot less talk about revenue and alignment and RevOps back then, because that was probably a decade plus ago.
Yes.
But we always wanted to sort of work together. And when we were reacquainted recently, we were like, hey, what are you doing? What should we do? And so I thought, why not get you on the show, talk a little bit about what it is that you're doing today, just in your practice area. Mm-hmm. And then we'll dive in a little bit into like why we think this is an important subject matter to be teaching on. We'll go into the course a little bit more. So why don't you share a little bit about sort of your backstory and what got you to where you are now, and why you're so passionate about what you do.
Yeah. Oh gosh. All right. So quick backstory. Like everybody, like Mike, it's so nice to work with you again. I always loved our interactions because I'm a firm believer in life is better together. How you do that is totally different, right? And everybody has a journey at the end of the day. And Mike, our paths crossed briefly for the first time earlier this week, and synergies there as well. And so love everything that we're doing. And my background, as Mike, you were talking about in the intro, is full on perfectionist, full on people pleaser, right? And it only got worse. And then you finally get to a point where you're like, none of that is serving me or anybody in my life or sphere of influence well anymore. Got to change it up. And the epiphany for me came when I had kids, because I was like, well, at some point I will most likely die. And they have to know how to be in the world without me. Number one. And number two, when I had my very first team, that was the feedback from the team it was more, Dionne, how do I do this? Teach me how. And so for me, I say that to say that's kind of the big idea is we have to teach people how to do things. And I am super passionate about that because I think helping people achieve their goals, now that I know what that means and what that looks like, is amazing. Helping people live out what they're really good at is amazing. And that not people pleasing and not being the perfectionist, which are both forms of control, stops people from being their best. So if we remove ourselves from the equation and say, wow, we've got a really great framework, or I, as your fearless leader, have created this framework that teaches you how to be the best version of yourself in whatever role you're in, That's awesome. And those people are off to the races and killing it. That's awesome.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. I mean, you and I did connect, like when we chatted earlier this week, it was great because I think we had a lot of the same things, but I'm with you. Like it's hard to describe for people who've not been in a position to actually help people grow and become a better, like really, especially people who are maybe don't believe in themselves in the first place, right? To show them that they can do great things, and looking back and seeing what they can accomplish. Like, I love that. I mean, it's such a great feeling.
Yeah. It's so fun. And I love Malcolm Gladwell. Michael, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Nope.
And huge fan. And if you haven't read his book, I think it's in Outliers. And it talks about this myth of I think it's the Asian culture being good at math and how we as Americans just aren't. And he goes, it's a myth. And he goes, you know why they're good at it? Because they are left to struggle through the math problem instead of somebody coming in and giving them the answer.
Yeah.
So it's the struggle, and it's not struggle in a bad way, like you can't get it. It's like going to exercise. I'm not going to go to the gym and do one push up and have the amazing summer biceps I'm hoping for. Yeah. That's not how it works.
there's whether you listen to like Joe Rogan or not, but Joe Rogan talks about, like, it's funny because I've been going through some health stuff, and it has included me trying the thing with like ice baths or cold plunge and stuff. And it's funny how the reaction I get from people from that about like, that just sounds awful. And there's something about just it, and actually I've come to actually like really like it it's really counterintuitive. Like it's super relaxing. But what like his point is like, that's the thing he does first thing in the morning. He's like, do the hard shit. Right.
Yes.
And then it makes everything else easier. And if like, I think there is something to this, like going through the struggle of learning. You talked about being a parent. Like one of the things that is really hard being a parent is like, I think, rescuing and just giving them answers, like doing the stuff for them. And it's funny to me. Like I love, like I just had one of my kids this week won some awards, including scholarships. He's a junior in high school. And, you know, I'm proud of him. And I told him that, but I was like, what I really like is that all the hard work you've put in, right, to develop these skills you're getting rewarded for it. And it's not just that it's a God-given thing. Like you had to work at it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There's, I'm a huge fan of reading, right? And there's a book called Talent is Overrated. And in that book, if you've heard, either one of you heard of it before?
I've not heard of it.
I feel like I have, but I'm like blanking now. Tell me more.
Yeah. So Talent is Overrated is exactly that. And it's basically the person with, born talent will be outperformed by the person who has sub-talent, but practices. And oh, by the way, in order to call yourself an expert in something, it takes 10,000 hours of doing that thing.
Yeah.
And 10,000 hours is 10 years.
Yeah.
10 years.
Insane.
Yeah.
That was the Malcolm Gladwell stuff.
That's another, I was going to say, he also wrote about that was not it. He lifted someone else's idea, but
he did borrow, he did reference someone else's stuff. Right,
Yeah.
I was trying to I was actively trying to find the book. Not that
I was too.
Sees the video, but I was just like, we don't publish the video ever, but like I wanted to be like, Dionne, look, I read that book.
It's
so funny it's funny that you brought up Gladwell and Outliers, because literally I think I may have been smiling when you said he's like literally probably 2 days ago at dinner. We were talking about it at dinner.
Oh, really?
My oldest has read it, and he's a big fan. He's, not quite 20, right? Which is and just I think there's
when I read it.
Yeah,
I think so. It's just a good and it's just a good sort of set of observations and things to learn as you're sort of developing at any stage of life, really, but like definitely as an adolescent moving into adulthood and all those things. That was super helpful, I thought, especially in a professional field. So
I think the more we read, the bigger our horizon grows and our vocabulary.
Oh, yeah.
And, Brene Brown always says you can only go as far as your vocabulary can take you. Something along, horribly paraphrasing. So for those of you that are Brene Brown fans, don't like poo-poo me on some of that, but right. Like it's true where if we can't, one of the leaders I follow, he goes, if you can't name it, you can't tame it.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. I like that. I've not heard that.
Yeah. So it's one of those things like, people are like, oh, don't label me and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, hey man, like just calm down everybody. Like you can't fix something if you don't know what you're trying to fix. Yeah. Right. It's like going to the doctor and go, I hurt everywhere. And the doctor's going to ask you, well, what's wrong? You're like, hey, don't label me. Right. Like, no. What we're talking about when we think about naming something is being able to describe what it is we're trying to do.
Hey everyone, Mike Rizzo here, CEO of marketingops.com and co-host of OpsCast. I've got a little secret to share with you, something that's been one of the best kept perks of our community until now. At marketingops.com, we've built a hiring program that's changing the game for marketing operations recruitment, and we're finally sharing it with the world. Our community is over 22,000 strong, and within that, we have over 4,400 members who are actively and passively seeking new opportunities. These are seasoned professionals with skills and experience spanning platforms like HubSpot, Pardot, Marketo, and so much more. Plus, we can help you fine-tune your outreach, targeting exactly the right candidates by region, years of experience, seniority level, or even agency experience. But here's the real cherry on top. When you hire through our program, your new team member gets a free membership or a virtual ticket to our annual conference. From day one, they're not just stepping into a new role, they're getting access to the training, networking, and support they need to hit the ground running. So if you're ready to unlock this incredible opportunity, it's time to let this secret out. Visit marketingops.com and find your next star teammate today. Thanks for listening, and as always, keep optimizing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, and I think there's an interesting corollary to that one, which I've talked about a lot, which is I think people, like I tend to ask a lot of questions, especially if I'm in a new place, if I'm doing consulting or something like that. Ask a lot of questions because part of what I'm trying to understand is the language that particular organization uses.
100%.
Because what I find in a lot of places is people use certain words or internal acronyms or things like that. Yep. And if you don't actually ask about that and you just assume like you're going to, like they assume you know, and I think people are afraid to look stupid, which I've gotten past a long time ago, because I think it's, what I found is much more valuable to actually ask the question and understand. Yes. And then you can adapt, then you can also adapt your language. And to your point, right, if you have the vocabulary, you can articulate like what you heard in a different way, just to make sure, like you can verify, because I think a lot of problems in most organizations have come down to, in a lot of cases, just communication, right? It's either people are not talking about the same thing, or they're talking passionately about the same thing using different terms and thinking they're disagreeing. Yes. It's like what I call it. They're in violent agreement sometimes, right? Like they're fucking arguing, but they're actually agreeing and they don't realize it. And sometimes it just takes somebody who's observing and going like, I think you're actually saying the same thing, but using different words.
Yeah. Same team.
Right? We're all headed the same direction here. You're just not using the same thing. It was funny. I was at the CFO breakfast on Tuesday this week, and they were
CFOs don't do happy hours, do they?
Well, maybe they do. I don't know. But this particular community, the CFO Alliance, hosts these quarterly breakfasts in their regions, and just incredibly well facilitated by the CEO of CFO Alliance. But what was fascinating was they were talking about all the same things, not that surprising, but like definitely all the same things we all talk about, just like trying to actually understand the problem, really boil down to communication and truly like digging into the needs of someone's role, right? Whether that's technology or their career aspirations or whatever. It was so many of the same topics that, we talk about in marketing ops. And I was like, gosh, we all need to be hanging out more often. So we're going to work on that, hanging out more with the finance folks. But to get back to this idea of professional development and sort of your area of expertise nowadays, anyway, I guess it's always kind of been there, right? But you're really focused in providing these various sort of like coaching environments or educational platforms. We were talking about books. Let's talk a little bit about what is the stepped approach? What have you written there? And then let's dive into our course that we're going to do with you coming up here in a couple of months. We're going to start in August. So
yes, we are going to start in August. Yeah. So I finally wrote a book. It was on my list of things to do for the last, 5 some odd years. And so finally wrote it. It came out in January of last year. And it's taking everything we've done to build a team, and more importantly, the framework for the team and put it in a book, basically. Mm-hmm. And so that's what the stepped approach is. So if you're curious about how to actually build a system for your team, not just a team, that's what that book is going to give you. Right. So that's what it is. And I've got colleagues of mine who have ordered it and they've gone through 3 of them. I am a Midwesterner by nature. I'm from Chicago. I have a military family background. Right. So we didn't do anything willy-nilly. My dad always had a Mickey Mouse watch. And if we were late, we were grounded one day for every minute we were late. So yeah. There were 5 kids in my family, 3 boys, 2 girls, like everything. There was a system for everything. If there were initials on the calendar for cooking, cleaning, like you name it, we had a system for it. And so, but it worked. And so basically took that same approach as well as the agile software development approach. I've been in sales and tech for 25 years. And I said, why can't we take that same agile approach to creating a sales team and scaling our sales team? And so that was 10 years ago. And, I'm sure it was out there somewhere, but I think popular culture has kind of caught up with the whole learning paths and, graduation and certifications and all that good stuff. And it's like, we've been doing that for years. And promoting that thought process for years. So that's what you're going to get in that book is literally a stepped approach, creating a system for your team, working with sales enablement. If you have them, great. If not, this book will give you everything you need to create the system that you can use as a manager. Yeah.
See, I love that. And so for our listeners, we're obviously a marketing operations centric sort of community, right? And certainly I'm sure our listenership falls more squarely in line with marketing operations professionals.
Yep, and absolutely.
If not the aspiring or current RevOps professional. But what I particularly find intriguing or interesting about this is the idea of sort of how do we bridge over to the departments that we don't maybe interact with as deeply on a regular basis, right? So we might not know the ins and outs of what it takes to run a sales organization or build a team. And I think that, we actually already touched on it in this podcast recording is understanding the vernacular and the language that they use. This is ideally going to be our path toward helping this community take a little step in that direction, right?
Yeah.
And so I guess we've teamed up with Dionne to focus on bringing a course to the community. It is a live course for all of you that are listening now. And we have some sort of wait list registration open right now. We'll link to it in the show notes. But it is going to be over, what are we doing? 6 weeks?
6. Yep. It's yep. Every 2 weeks. So about 12 weeks. Yep.
Yeah. Over 12 weeks, six live sessions. You will get a free copy of that book if you take the course. By the way, the book is called The Stepped Approach, Onboard Better, Systemize Smarter, and Bring Out the Best in Your Sales Team. So we'll also link to that in the show notes for you all. But why don't you talk us through a little bit of like what you plan to cover in this session, and give people a sense of why they might, why this might be helpful for them as they think about moving, further in their career beyond just being a MarTech specialist, right? What are we doing here with you?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for saying all that, Mike, because I want to share with everybody. You might be going, oh man, I'm in marketing. I don't need a book on sales teams. And I hear you, and I appreciate that feedback. I would say, knowing the stepped approach and having lived it out, it's more of a system and framework book. So for example, one of the things that we call out in that book, and we're going to talk a little bit about in our course, is your skills matrix. So it doesn't matter if you're leading a sales team or you're leading any team. The goal is to have aces in the right places. But you can't do that if we don't know what we need on our team. And so having a skills matrix for people on your team, and for you, like, what do I know I need to be good at in my role? What do I necessarily not need to be good at, but what should I know? And so it's really taking the time to look at those things in your role. So if you're in MarTech, again, like we talked about at the beginning of the show, we are all better together. There's going to be a healthy tension. We know that to be true because a lot of times we're in violent agreement on things and we really lack the ability to see from somebody else's point of view. So in our course, we're going to talk about all of those things. We're going to talk about what it means to be a leader, and really give everybody the framework and the system to identify those things that you're really good at from a leadership perspective and give you the confidence to be good at that, right? And give you the confidence to talk about those things. How would you identify yourself as a sales leader? Mike, we talk about communicate and collaborate is a verb. I'm a word nerd, not a marketing, but I'm still a word nerd.
Yep.
And we talk about that. And so, if you're looking at the course, it's, the first thing we're going to talk about is the 10 irrefutable laws for being a leader. And one of those laws is communicate and collaborate. Those two words are verbs. And
Yes.
so, Mike, a lot of what people are going to come in to get is that foundation for themselves and that the system for themselves to create as a leader. Right? We're going to talk about what's your purpose statement. What, Mike?
I said, I'm just super excited by this whole concept. I wish I could take the course. I'm not going to take somebody's seat, though.
Oh, well,
No,
you know
there's
what?
only
We'll
10
give you a
seats.
pass. We'll give you a pass.
Oh,
That's true.
okay.
That's true.
Yeah.
We'll see.
I know you. I'm sorry to interrupt, but
no,
it's
please
interesting.
do. I get super passionate about all this.
I know you and I talked about like the things about being, especially for people who are new leaders, right? I think there's a lot of things that apply regardless of the functional area that
100%.
people who are just getting into a role where they're leading people or are aspiring to do that. I think anything that can help those people become better or more prepared for that, because there's a lot of stuff that I know I didn't know that was just sort of assumed, right? It was like these unspoken things about being in those roles that are out there that can really trip you up, and it's easy
Which is dumb.
I'm also curious, and I don't know if you're familiar with the book, The First 90 Days.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm a big fan of that. I actually think I have 3 copies because I keep losing it, and then I find them again, and then I've given them out. But
that's awesome.
So I'm curious. Just I didn't until I haven't read your book, and so now it's on my list. But now seeing the subtitle also, it sort of triggered me. Like, is there some parallels there? Like, I know the first 90 days is really intended for how do you accelerate like building momentum as a new role in those first 90 days. I mean, it sounds like there's some similarities in what you're trying to do with the stepped approach along with the training, or am I reading things incorrectly?
No, I think that's a good point. And I hadn't heard of the 90-day book before I had written mine, but there is definitely some similarities to it. And one of the things we'll talk about, I think in this course, but we talk about in general, is people are never as excited as they are when they first start something new.
Truth.
Mm-hmm.
Make it easy for your people to love what they're doing. And that whole, well, they should just know. Okay, you know what? It's not the 80s anymore, and we don't live in that world. We just don't. There used to be this tribal knowledge, and we just don't have that anymore. And so I think, Mike, to your point, we host, on a side note, we host our executive peer groups within Revenue by Design. We have 3 right now. We're spinning up 5 more. We're going to have 8 across the country. So if you're curious and want some executive company, we got you covered. But that being said, is the discussion we just had in one of our local groups was, I feel like I'm micromanaging somebody if I'm instructing them how to do something. And so to your point, we talk about state the obvious, because it's what we don't say that causes the problems. Whether pick a relationship, right? Don't look at them right now, but pick one, right? Yeah. If you're with somebody, listen to this podcast. So it's the things we don't say that cause the biggest problems. So when we're number one, number two, when we were talking about this, I said, there's a huge difference between accountability and micromanaging. So here's an example for those of you that have children. So for me, it was really important for my kids to have a good routine, hygiene, all that good stuff. I never want them to be the stinky kid, right? So since they were little, they're now 15 and 12, up, shower, teeth, deodorant, whole 9 yards, like take care of business. So my daughter's 15. I think she was 14 at the time, which was just a few months ago. And I'm like, all right, everybody brush your teeth. Like to this day, I am still saying, hey, get your bedtime routine, brush your teeth, all that good stuff, right? Well, now we're at the age where everybody wants to skate, right? And they're lazy. Okay, fine. So she goes, yeah, I did. Okay. Well, mama's not done. It's really funny, darling daughter. Your toothbrush isn't wet and there's no water in the sink.
Wait, what?
Yeah. So, oh, no, I didn't. I was like, okay, so here's the deal. So now we're done lying because I've had it. So for those of you that have teenagers, right? I was like, here's what's going to happen. Every day for the next 5 days, you are going to brush your teeth in front of me in the morning and at night because I'm done with you lying to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I know we're not going to show video, but like her eyes got huge and she's like, I'm not doing that. She's never lied about it since.
Yeah. Well, so it's interesting. I can't remember if we talked about this when we first met, but the whole thing about micromanaging, I have a sort of a different view on that, I think, than many people, which is I think there are people who, whether they acknowledge it or not, actually perform better when they're micromanaged.
But what's your definition of micromanaging?
Oh, this was one where I actually didn't have it wasn't a direct report, but somebody who essentially was like I was giving direction to on a regular basis. And this person was really, really good if I gave her like, do this, yep. do this, do this, like here are the things that need to be done, here are the steps to do them. And then usually I had to be working on the next set because she would go through them so fast.
Yeah.
But if she ever ran into like something that didn't follow that script, so to speak, right, of here are the steps you go through, she really struggled with try to resolve it, get around it, and would immediately come to me, right?
Yeah.
Now, is that my preferred style of having people work for me? No. At the same time, I think we did talk about this. Like, I believe that as a people leader, your job is not to expect people to adapt their style to you. It's the other way around, right? You need
100%.
you need to be the person that is working around their style to help make them the most productive and productive is probably not even just the right word, right? But perform like at the best that they can
100%.
in that, even if that means doing stuff that you like, it's not your normal mode of operation or preferred mode of operation.
I agree with that, Mike, but I also think that doesn't sound like micromanaging to me. That sounds like showing somebody how to do something. And now but I could be, I wasn't there, right?
Yeah. No,
but I think it's that prescriptive approach, right? Where if somebody doesn't know how to do something and they genuinely want to know how, and to your point, a lot, in my opinion, right, is that's not micromanaging. That is teaching somebody how because they didn't know how to put the pieces together. And there's a lot of that right now. We are coaching that in every single engagement we have right now.
Yeah.
People, it's not that they're dumb, right? And it's not that we don't know. I can Google anything. I can ask Alexa anything, right? It's what do I do with it when I have it? So now in that scenario and in the scenarios we have, it's, hey, you're expected to learn how to do this. So if the scenario comes up again, we're not starting with this very prescriptive, delineated, stepped approach, no pun intended, right? You're able to go and take it. So there's a really great book called The Way They Learn, right? And it's the concrete thinking versus abstract thinking. And when somebody is learning something, it is linear and it is step by step. When they master something, it's abstract because I can go and run and do whatever I need to.
Right. And that makes it just to anchor it for me, the way I'm interpreting this, because I'm the marketing ops person. I'm like, okay, yeah, I remember building out my first emails, right? Like there's a step-by-step approach and a checklist you sort of have to go through, and it's fairly regimented, right? And maybe there's limitations to what you're allowed to do depending on how controlled the templates are or whatever.
100%.
But over time, you start to look at, well, now I know how to do this.
Right.
And if someone throws the task at you to how do you make it perform better, you start to, maybe think more abstractly about things. I think on the micromanaging piece too, I think for our listeners who are leading teams, or aspiring to lead people, just to sort of stick with the email marketing example, I think there does come a point where I think, so the definition of micromanaging is to control every part, however small, of a particular enterprise or activity, right? Mm-hmm. And so in the email marketing example, it might be the person feels like they have to get approval for the color of the button, the words on the button, the shape of the button, every single thing they have to go to you and get approval for. And the difference is
control.
Yeah. If you equip them with a system, right, to operate within, and then you eventually say, you can pick any of these. And then, maybe there's 3 different button colors. Yep. There's 3 different options for text all the time. You're equipping them with some level of autonomy. They know they're operating within the bounds, right? So you're not necessarily micromanaging, but you're, I think, giving them that step in the direction of autonomy to eventually ask them a new question. Why did you choose that one? Yes. Right?
Yes.
What made you make that decision this time? And okay, why? Or why haven't you chosen a different one yet?
100%.
And start heading down this new path. So I think that's how I was anchoring on a lot of 100%.
It's like you're learning something, and then there's this iterative, creative approach to it that says now you're going to measure what's working or not.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
And that's the beautiful thing about learning.
Yeah.
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 It's never static.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
okay. Go ahead.
So maybe you're going to where I was like, I interrupted her train of thought on the description of the course, but also I'm curious if you want to finish that. But like, what if people were to register for the course? What can they expect coming out of it after the 12 weeks and 6 sessions?
Yeah, they can absolutely expect their own leadership framework and a really clear path of what they need to do next to get to where they want to go, and the confidence to do it. That's it.
I'm really, really excited by this. So we, just to sort of round out some of the details. So we're talking about getting the sort of irrefutable laws of leadership.
Yes.
You're going to talk about the number one reason to complete your annual plan.
100%. And everybody gets one of those. Yeah.
I love it. And gosh, annual planning sucks. So
it's not what people are thinking. It's a really simple, it's your own personal annual plan, professional annual plan. I'll send it to you, Mike, so you have it.
Okay. That'll be good. I like that. And then we're headed in. So by the time we get into September here, we're going into crafting your purpose statement to drive results. So is this sort of like a mission, vision, purpose type of thing, but for an individual?
Yes. These are personal, professional purpose statements. I despise mission and vision statements.
Fair.
And Mike is laughing because he knows me so well, because they go flat and companies spend oodles of money and time and energy on creating them, and nobody knows what they sure.
Well, they tend to use words that are sort of meaningless.
100% drivel.
Yeah.
So, personal, professional purpose statements ties to your annual plan. And I guarantee you 100% hit rate that everybody loves that course.
Yeah. And maybe it's just a nuanced thing, but I remember when I took training I used to use the Franklin Covey planning system.
Yep.
And it was like part of that was doing a personal mission statement. So it was mission, but it's probably similar. And I thought that was actually really, really valuable to the point of like really anchoring, like, and you look at it every day, right? It was there every day. 100%. So in the middle of the day and you come up against a decision you have to make. If it goes against what your mission was, like it was really easy made a lot easier to say no to stuff or say yes to only, yeah.
Yep. We did the exercise with a team before. This was pre-COVID. Everybody was in the office, and the team. So part of your crafting your own is crafting it for your team, and the team had it literally on the banner hanging up over their section of the cubicles.
I love that.
Right? Yeah. Clarity, perspective, focus. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, all right. So we're going to go through, I'm going to round this out because we're running out of time.
I know.
want to make sure that everybody gets to hear the last couple of things that are going to happen over these 6 sessions. So we're going to, in your module, we're going to talk about the power of you putting in here great goal setting, not just goal setting, which I think is key, right?
Yeah.
Then we're going to go into session 5 is the simplest way to determine your metrics, KPIs, and dashboards. I think that rings true to so many of us in marketing ops.
Yes. That'll be a really good session. I look forward to hearing from everybody on that one.
Yeah. And then we'll round it out with creating your schedule for maximum results, not just any schedule, your dream schedule to maximize your results. So that'll be where it sort of ends. And then for all of the listeners, it's on the page, so you guys can go check it out. But I'm really, really excited by creating this kind of opportunity for everybody. And I hope you can take advantage of it. We will be giving away a free copy of that book, as we mentioned before. We will have a private group for us all to interact with Dionne. And do some follow-up questions, interact with the cohort. Again, it's limited to 10 seats, although we might be able to run two cohorts. So we could open it up. And then we will, if you haven't already gotten your Mopsapalooza ticket, we will give you an exclusive discount to be able to come to Mopsapalooza, because the goal here, not surprisingly, is to bring everyone together. So here you are, you've gone through this learning. And then we ideally all show up at Mopsapalooza together, and we get to sort of interact with each other face to face, maybe dive in. Where have you been since, the course has ended? Because you'll have a bit of a break. It'll end in October. So you'll have a handful of weeks to sort of like sit and mull over your things and, talk about it with your team. And then we can come together the first week of November and maybe, share some insights on how things are going. So did I miss anything, Dionne?
No, I'm so excited. I look forward to meeting everybody in our course. If you're not taking the course, I hope you are, right? But connect with me on LinkedIn. Always happy to chat. What you're doing with your community is amazing, and it's inspirational. So I really appreciate that. And Michael, it's always nice to meet you as well. Meet new people and what you all are doing and within your community, and giving people a home and an ear and a place to go is amazing.
Well, we appreciate you. And just to round it out and touch back on, I know we all aren't necessarily fans of mission and vision statements, but funny enough, our mission is to facilitate the advancement of marketing ops and empower MoPros everywhere through educational and entertaining content, resources, research, and events centered around a diverse and inclusive community. And I think we're living up to that with this particular course. So.
It's going to be amazing.
I just did a post about this morning, so I was like, I have it written down.
Do it.
You're right. I don't have it memorized.
I know. See, I will share with you our purpose statement. You and I will get together soon, and we'll talk about it. Give you a formula. It's easy to remember.
I am excited for the people who get the opportunity to take this course, because I think having these kinds of I'll call it practical frameworks. This is what it sounds like to me. It's really practical. Like, you're going to get benefit out of it from probably day one.
Yes.
And I also love this idea of doing this hard work, because it won't be easy, right? Doing this hard work and introspection, like doing that kind of stuff of a personal mission statement type thing it's kind of hard, right, to really think through it and what your values are and all that kind of stuff. But it's coming out of it, doing it with a group of people and coming out of it on the other side is going to be, I think, really, really, the people who get to do it are going to look back on that and it's going to be a life-changing event.
It is. Yeah. It is. It's always better to do stuff like that together. And once you go through it, you can't undo it. And it's amazing. So
yeah, it's the best.
Totally.
Well, I look forward to it.
Thank you, Dionne. Hartman, you want to close us out or you want me to do the honors?
Go for it. You need some practice, Mike.
I do need some practice. One of these days I'll do more of the hosting and closing. So thank you, listeners, for all of your attentiveness during this episode and any of the previous ones. Please don't forget to rate and review us. I looked the other day. We have all 5-star ratings on Apple. So
amazing.
That doesn't mean anybody should go give us a lower rating.
That's right. That's right.
But we would love for you to go rate and review us. And if you have ideas on guests or topics, don't ever hesitate to reach out. And hopefully we'll see you all in the course and at Mopsapalooza this November. Thanks, everybody.
Let's do it, everybody.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Bye. Thanks. Bye.